Velocity morning, peace and blessings. Getting into the chart of Ricky Hatton. Rest in peace to the white god. Ricky, he passed away a couple days ago on September 14th, 2025 at the age of 46. His death, to me, is real mysterious, you feel me? And I'm sure it is, a lot of others as well or whatnot. His death it's real sudden, real out the way, real what the fuck is like a what the fuck vibe type to it or whatnot. You feel me? Especially being that he just got scheduled for a fight in December or whatnot. You feel me? He was supposed to be returning to the ring to fight some Arab nigga in Dubai, but it's like finally getting back in the ring. Getting back into the public view, back into your passion of boxing, what you like doing or whatnot. Even from the transit standpoint, like his upcoming transits, seem very prosperous and seem very fruitful. You feel me? It seems like had he had lived to actually attend that particular boxing match, the nigga would have won. It would have been a very fruitful time period for him. But it's like for you to just up and pass away, months before said event or whatnot, it's real crazy. I'm not even gonna lie. Once I heard about this shit, heard about his death, I automatically thought some conspiracy type of shit, bro. Like this nigga's death isn't of natural causes for sure. I just can't believe that at all. And not to get sidetracked, but you feel me? Lil Kirk just died. Rest in peace, Lil Kirk. They had smoked him at that rally and whatnot. The white lady on the train, she got stabbed up. Rest in peace to her. And the black dude, he had got hung on that college campus. And so it's like, they do a lot of ritual harvesting around these times or whatnot. So it's a lot of ritual sacrifice around the fall equinox, a lot of distractions, a lot of energy manipulation or whatnot. And don't want to just automatically jump to the assumption that this could be the reason behind his death. I'm not necessarily really feeling that, but it is still a strange element to his death. The strangest one being to me is that he pretty much died during the fucking Crawford Canelo fight, or at the end of it, right? They found his body September 14th, 6 a.m. 6 a.m. in the morning. So that's when they found his body. You feel me? So the nigga could have died hours before that. You feel me? During the fight, or it depends upon when was the last time somebody actually had personal contact with him or whatnot. But yeah, the nigga really could have died during that fight, because I think the fight it ended during the morning of September the 14th or whatnot, right? The early hours of the morning and whatnot. So the nigga, the nigga really could have fucking his death could be in connection with that fight for sure. To be honest, what I'm starting to think, like as I think about it now, I'm starting to he probably, that's crazy. What I think is Canelo's loss might have triggered him to go back to when he lost to Pacquiao. And his loss to Pacquiao was pretty much like, his loss to Pacquiao was devastating. You know what I'm saying? He spoke on it. He spoke of the suicidal thoughts and depression, and you feel me, the drug addiction, or getting deeper into that process. You feel me, and how this happened around him losing to Pacquiao and whatnot, right? He's spoken on these things or whatnot, so it's no mystery. And his loss to Pacquiao, that's pretty much really when he stopped fighting on a consistent basis. I think he might have fought a couple times after that, but yeah, he wasn't the same after Pacquiao. It was very devastating for him, but I'm starting to believe that, I don't know, Canelo loss might have sent him back down a journey to memory lane, to the Canelo shit, you feel me? And it might have had him in some emotions. It might have had him in some anxiety, some depression, some suicidal energies or whatever the fuck, you feel me? And that might have triggered him to kill himself or maybe he was on some type of substance. Maybe he was already inebriated or under the influence of some particular drug, and the maybe he was going for Canelo. Maybe he was fan, or maybe he was rooting for Canelo, and maybe to see that, it probably triggered him back to when he lost to Pacquiao. It probably make him thinking about possibly losing to this nigga in Dubai, and fear, anxiety, depression, and shit probably built up. That's what probably took him out. I'm not even gonna lie. That makes sense to me in a way. I'm not saying that is, but it does sound like a strong possibility, and it's really strange that you would just pass away during the same time period of this major ass fight. It's really strange. I really think Ricky probably killed himself due to some emotional distraught in connection with this fight. But getting to it, we about to get into his birth chart. This is his birth chart on the right. Right. I don't have his actual ascended time, as I don't have a birth time record for him officially. If one of y'all happen to have it, you feel me, you could definitely comment it below, you know what I'm saying, make that shit known to me. But from my estimation, he would be a Taurus ascendant, right? Why would I say he would be a Taurus ascendant? Taurus ascendant, it definitely very much so aligns with his life events and whatnot. So if he's a Taurus ascendant, Saturn would be in the 4th house. Now, what does Saturn represent in the 4th house, right? So a couple things that he's spoken on his life is him being bullied in his childhood, him being very self-conscious, of him being very sensitive about how he appears to the public, and not wanting to appear too arrogant, not wanting to appear too proud or too prideful, not wanting to appear too egotistical to the public, wanting to be seen as a pragmatic, mature, respectable individual in that way and whatnot, right? And when you have Saturn in the 4th, it pretty much can recognize somebody who's of these particular qualities, especially when it's in Leo, which Leo can deal with the egotistical, prideful, haughty, holier than thou type of energy. And Saturn being in Leo, it's like I'm trying to control that. I'm trying to choke that. I'm trying to overcome that. You feel me? I'm trying to get that under wraps. I don't want that shit to just get extremely heightened or unregulated. You feel me? This is a person who, especially with Saturn being a 4th house of Leo, a person who has Saturn in the 4th, generally it has a good degree, it has a good deal of control over their emotional process. These are people that can seem kind of stoic. These are people that can seem kind of dry to a certain degree. They're not crash outs. They're very much so mature. They're very much so dependable and reliable persons or whatnot. But they're real sensitive, and they're real cautious, and they're real observative as to how they are perceived by the public, especially fucking Ricky. If his 10th lord were to be in the ascendant, you know what I'm saying? Very mature and whatnot. And yeah, Saturn in the 4th, it can speak to the bullying aspect as well. It can speak to getting bullied. It can speak to having to deal with harsh or black sheep like situations within the childhood or whatnot, and all that. And it can speak to somebody having such a focused work or control over their own emotional process to where they're often able to be tolerant, or more tolerant than most of others' egotistical display or lack of emotional restriction. I've noticed this with Saturn in the 4th house, if this makes sense. Like, very mature in regards to their emotionality, right? But Sun, Mercury in the 5th, if his Sun, Mercury would be in the 5th, 4th lord of Sun, 5th lord is Mercury, conjunct in the 5th house, you know what I'm saying? 4th lord representing the mother, 5th lord representing the father and whatnot. Being in the sign of work, being in the sign of service, being in the sign of business management, routine, daily routine, you know what I'm saying? Cleaning, being in the sign of doing and managing multiple things, money management, etc., etc. There's many things that you can say about Virgo. Uh, the mother and the father will have this type of quality. Now, I don't know. I want to say Charlie Kirk, Rip Lil Kirk, but Ricky, right? So Ricky, his mother and father, they owned 4 pubs or they owned 4 bars. You know what I'm saying, in his childhood. So they were business owners, and they pretty much were workaholics. And Ricky was pretty much integrated or born into that workaholic type of lifestyle and whatnot, right? Knowing the I wouldn't say the intricacies, but knowing the process of business via the family, via being born into it, inheritance, right? In fifth house, uh, at least from my analysis, it represents the inheritance. It represents the traits or the gifts or the coding that is given to you naturally, you know. And him being raised under his mother and father, which the fourth lord, fifth lord, the mother lord, and the father lord are conjunct in the same house of Virgo. His parents was pretty much busy, business people, workaholics. You know what I'm saying? Into service. You're into service if you own pubs or bars. You know what I'm saying? You're into catering. You're into also managing multiple things. You know what I'm saying? Managing this over here, going back to manage that over here. Financial transactions. You have to be very detailed and acute and precise. You have to be very cautious about certain legalities or whatnot, and debt management, etc., etc. So this makes perfect sense for him. And not only was Ricky born into that, but he was a very intelligent individual on his own as well. You know what I'm saying? He was very much so sharp, very much so intellectual, very much so business minded as well. Like outside of boxing, he was into real estate. He had a very vast real estate portfolio and whatnot, right? A very successful businessman, and not even just real estate or boxing, but he was into many different things. He was versatile. He was multifaceted. You feel me? Very intellectual, smooth, you know, uh, adept individual in many different streams of income. I even think he was acting, on some TV shows and some movies at one point or whatever. So he has all that. You feel me? And that's definitely showcased by this excellent fifth house of his or whatnot. I haven't looked up his educational background, but I should look into that. It'll probably speak more to that fifth house. But getting to the sixth house, the Venus and the Mars. Venus is in Vishaka. Mars is conjunct Venus. They're both in Libra. Libra is the underworld. You know what I'm saying? Libra is it's the scales, it's Anubis. It's showing you the reflection of your heart and whatnot, right? And like they say, your heart must be lighter than a feather in order to balance them scales and in order to, make it through the underworld without getting your fucking head chopped off or no critical process of anything like that, right? So with this Venus and with this Mars being a Libra, it shows way too many passions, way too many desires in the heart. You feel me? Way too many, too strong. You feel me? And this leads to addictions of many sorts: drugs, alcohol, women, sex. It could even women's sex. Like it's too much of a pleasurable or too much of an attachment to pleasure. You know what I'm saying? Uh, binging, binging on substances. Mars and Libra by itself, it goes too far. It does too much. It doesn't know how to stop because the seventh house is pretty much where you give your full committance or where you give your full devotion to a particular thing. And when it's Mars there, conjunct Venus and Vishaka, it's a real nasty situation. And Ricky, he was doing cocaine. He was doing not only cocaine, he was an alcoholic. He was doing all type of drugs and all type of shit. You feel me? In different relationships. You feel me? Relationships ending because of him cheating. Being in the sixth house, this would show as to why his Martian side of why, you feel me, how he would get into the boxing, because Mars in the sixth house, it can show somebody, who can be engaged in Martian discipline on a daily basis of some sort, right? refining that Martian energy or perfecting and improving that Martian energy and whatnot. But at the same time, with it being present with Venus, he wasn't as disciplined as he could have been through his training camps, or even on his dietary practice. Like a good number, some of the fights that costed him, he could have potentially won if he had been as strict on his dietary practice as he knew he could have been, right? Maybe he wasn't fatigued as fast, or maybe he wouldn't have been as out of shape, or maybe he could have kept up with the opponent or outperformed the opponent if he wasn't getting doped up between training sessions, or not showing up to certain trainings or whatever. You feel me? Because the nigga too high, or because you feel me he eating too much. I heard that they used to call the nigga Ricky Fatton. Ricky Fatton, because after his fights, his walk around weight could reach up to like 175, 180, you know what I'm saying? So that just shows the lack of discipline. That just shows the lack of attachment to pleasurable experience, even food, like, outside of women, outside of drugs, outside of alcohol, outside of pleasurable substances, not even outside of pleasurable substances, but food as well, you know what I'm saying? Uncontrollable eating, like eating, consumption can be seen by this Venus and Vishaka conjunct this Mars. It's like the person just likes to feel good. So this ascendant makes sense for him. Even with the moon in the 7th house of Scorpio, his women, 7th Lord in the 6th house, ascendant Lord. So if his 7th Lord is in the 6th house with Venus, and if his moon is in the 7th, you can deal with women that's younger than you. Moon in Scorpio, you can deal with women that's more of an exotic type of appeal, or women that's more of a gold digger type of appeal. I think he done had a couple younger bras or whatnot, or something like that. So that's how that could line up. But 7th Lord in the 6th, his partners could have been potentially manipulative or abusive in some way. I don't know how true that is. I don't think I've ever heard anything like that in relation to his relationship. So I don't necessarily know if he's a Taurus ascendant, right? This is just my guess. Even with the Jupiter being the 8th Lord in the 3rd house, the 8th Lord is going to show accidents, you know what I'm saying, profound incidents that a person has to come back from. The 3rd house, it deals with the hands and the limbs or whatnot. And he got into an accident one time working for his mother and father or whatever, to where his fingers got cut like severely or whatnot. Could have almost stopped his boxing career before it ever started or whatnot, and but he recovered because 8th Lord is exalted. 8th Lord is strong, so it shows a recovery. And also, he's had some issues with his elbows and his arms, at certain points throughout his boxing career or whatnot, injuries and whatnot. So even the Jupiter placement kind of lines up. But getting into it, his death transit. How did he get up out of here? So this is the day that he died. He would have died somewhere during the morning time. So I'm going to just put it to like 3 o'clock, 3 in the morning. So 3 in the morning, September 2025, that's possibly when he died or whatnot. So let's see. If he's a Taurus ascendant, Mars would be his 12th Lord. So Moon is in his ascendant. I think he's a Taurus ascendant, dog. I think he's a Taurus ascendant, yeah. So Moon would be in his ascendant. Moon in the birth chart is in the 7th house, and Moon would be transiting his ascendant at the time of death. 12th Lord, Mars, would be in its return, right? So Mars would be going back into the sign of Libra, and Mars would be 8th aspect this moon in particular, right? On the ascendant. What else? and he's in a Rahu and Ketu flip. So he's born with Rahu on the cusp of Leo and Virgo, Ketu on the cusp of Aquarius and Pisces, and during the time of his death, Ketu is at 23 degrees of Leo. So Ketu was transiting over the Rahu with the Sun and Mercury, and Rahu is transiting over the natal Ketu, you know. And Saturn is opposite his position just about as well. Like Saturn is in the middle of Leo within the natal, and it's kind of conjunct this Rahu. It's not exact, but Saturn is kind of conjunct this Rahu. But even in the sky right now, Saturn is in Pisces at the beginning of Pisces, retrograding back towards the Aquarius, and Rahu, you know, it's at like 23 degrees Aquarius. So this is kind of a conjunction, but it's not. Like, it's close. It's close in proximity, but it's not exactly a natural conjunction. But it's still funny how in his birth, you know, this Rahu and Saturn, they were located very close in the sky. And in his death, they're located on the opposite side of the zodiac, you know, damn near almost within the same portion of the sky. But that's all I got for this video, Velocity.